What if the movies that shaped the greatest filmmaker of our time weren't the blockbusters you'd expect? Stay with me, because discovering Steven Spielberg's personal favorites reveals the blueprints behind decades of cinematic magic. And when we reach his ultimate choice, you'll see the film that sparked a legendary career. And it's more surprising than you think. Take a deep breath, stretch your legs, or grab a drink. You'll want to absorb every frame of this journey. For Spielberg, filmmaking was never just a career. It was a calling. And like all extraordinary storytellers, his journey begins with the voices and visions of others. The films he grew up watching, the storytellers who taught him how to truly listen, and the cinematic masterpieces that made him believe in the magic of movies. All of these shaped the man behind the camera. From ghostly tales to grand war operas, from the quiet dreams of small towns to vast cosmic odysseys, Spielberg's top picks reveal far more about him than any interview ever could. Can you fake a resume? Perhaps. But can you fake influence? That's a much trickier question, and one Spielberg answers effortlessly with his choices. These aren't trendy picks or box office favorites. These are foundational blueprints, films that resonate within his work, sometimes subtly, sometimes unmistakably. Once you see the titles on his list, his entire career suddenly makes perfect sense. Some of the most breathtaking cinematic sequences in history in any film ever made trace directly back to these inspirations. Many directors talk about legacy, but Spielberg lives inside it. Here he reveals his 6 absolute favorite movies. And if you watch closely until the very end, you'll discover the one film he calls perfect, the movie that inspired him to pick up a camera in the first place. Number 6, Lawrence of Arabia, 1962. Some films don't just influence directors, they haunt them. For Spielberg, Lawrence of Arabia wasn't just an inspiration, it became an obsession. He first saw it at 16, and he left the theater utterly transformed. It was the first time he truly understood what a movie could be. From the endless desert vistas to the razor-sharp dissolves, David Lean created a cinematic canvas that Spielberg would return to throughout his life. Spielberg has admitted that Lawrence changed the way he thinks, how he frames a scene, paces a story, and even handles silence. In films like Saving Private Ryan, Munich, and War Horse, you can feel Lean's influence in every sweeping shot, every silent moment. The opening titles, presented in total silence, echo Lean's signature style, but it wasn't only the visuals that moved him, it was the paradoxes Lean explored. A hero who isn't heroic, a war epic about inner collapse. Lean didn't just show what a man did, he revealed who he was becoming. Spielberg calls it his desert island movie, and when Columbia Pictures restored it in the late 80s, Spielberg personally oversaw the process. Every time he revisits the film, he discovers something new. Number 5, 2001, A Space Odyssey, 1968. Spielberg never pretended to fully understand Kubrick's masterpiece, and that's exactly why he revered it. Kubrick didn't explain, he provoked. He dared his audience to stare into the vast, empty expanse of space and confront the unknown. The long silences, the ballet of machines, the terrifying emptiness of the cosmos. These moments forced Spielberg to feel small, not just in awe of the universe, but in awe of cinema itself. Kubrick taught that a film doesn't need to explain itself. It only needs to remain true to its vision. Despite their contrasting styles, Kubrick's cold precision versus Spielberg's warm storytelling, they became secret collaborators. Kubrick even sought Spielberg's advice on AI before his death, trusting him with his ideas. The influence is unmistakable. In Close Encounters, in Minority Report, in Spielberg's treatment of technology and AI, you can feel the echoes of 2001 in the mood, the awe, and the cinematic rhythm. But Spielberg never tried to imitate Kubrick. He didn't mimic him. He let Kubrick orbit his imagination, like a distant star to learn from. Some directors you study, others you chase. Number 4, A Guy Named Joe, 1943. Long before aliens, dinosaurs, or soldiers storming Omaha Beach, there was a man named Joe. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't epic. Yet for Spielberg, it was the first film that made him feel everything at once. I was hit like a thunderbolt, he recalls. Watching it on TV as a child, he cried uncontrollably. The story: a reckless pilot dies in war, then returns as a spirit to guide a younger man. Romantic, strange, mystical. And it planted the seed for the kind of stories Spielberg would spend his entire career chasing. Tales of sacrifice, hope, and redemption, wrapped in supernatural wonder. As a child, he couldn't put it into words, but a guy named Joe gave him feelings he could never forget. Just sit back and let the ship fly herself, he remembered being told. Decades later, in 1989, he remade it. Not to surpass the original, but as a love letter to the kid who stayed up late, glued to the screen, watching Spencer Tracy say goodbye. Critics were indifferent, but it didn't matter. That film wasn't for them. It was for him and for every child who felt swept away by the magic of a story. Because some movies don't teach you how to direct, they teach you why. And Spielberg has never stopped learning from it. Number 3, Fantasia, 1940. Before Spielberg understood plot, character, or dialogue, he understood sound. Fantasia didn't just entertain him, it possessed him. It was like the screen opened and swallowed me, he said. Disney's dream of blending classical music with hand-drawn animation created pure emotion with no rules. And for a young Spielberg, it was his first encounter with cinematic magic. He realized rhythm could shape story, visuals could dance without words, and music could carry the soul of a scene. Look at Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The 5-note communication, the rising, trembling orchestration, they all echo Disney through Spielberg's lens. Even E.T.'s bike flight carries that same weightless, musical transcendence. Fantasia taught him that storytelling isn't always in dialogue. It's in the music, in the rhythm, in the emotion. Decades later, he still speaks about it with awe, not analyzing it, just remembering how it washed over him. For Spielberg, sometimes the wildest, most misunderstood ideas are the ones that last forever. Number 2, The Godfather, 1972. Berg quit, he said, recalling his reaction. Watching Coppola's masterpiece, he thought, I'll never be that good. Shadows, silence, moral decay. Coppola's precision made Spielberg slow down, focus, and tell truth frame by frame. Films like Munich and even Schindler's List carry echoes of that meticulous, chilling world. Sometimes the highest compliment a filmmaker can give another is envy, and Spielberg felt it in every scene. Number 1, It's a Wonderful Life, 1946. Not a blockbuster, not a technical marvel, just a man, a town, and a moment. But for Spielberg, it was everything. It's the movie that made me believe in stories, he says. Not Hollywood, not cinema, stories. When he first watched George Bailey's breakdown, he wasn't analyzing plot or craft. He was holding his breath. It was deeply personal, a revelation of the human heart, and it became the emotional foundation for everything he would create after. And with these 6 films shaping him so profoundly, it's easy to see how each of Spielberg's masterpieces carries echoes of the stories that first captured his imagination, each one a stepping stone leading us into the next chapter of his cinematic journey. Spielberg later admitted that he cried harder than he ever had in front of a screen. Music. Clarence, Clarence, help me, Clarence. That simple plea from It's a Wonderful Life hit him harder than any special effect or blockbuster spectacle ever could. What Frank Capra accomplished was deceptively simple. No aliens, no gangsters, just life falling apart and somehow coming back together. That quiet courage, that sense of finding immense scale in the ordinary, became a lifelong obsession for Spielberg. You can see its echoes everywhere in his work. In E.T., a suburban kid discovers the galaxy in his own backyard. In Catch Me If You Can, a father's absence resonates louder than any police siren. Even in The Fabelmans, Spielberg whispers to the audience, "This is my George Bailey." Capra taught him that hope isn't naive, it's brave. Critics have often labeled Spielberg sentimental, but that sentiment wasn't random. It was inherited from Bedford Falls. Capra didn't just make a movie, he left behind a philosophy. Small lives matter, quiet sacrifices echo, and storytelling isn't merely about escape, it's about returning, about grounding the fantastical in the profoundly human. For Spielberg, that has always been the mission behind the camera. And there it is, the man behind the lens. 6 films that didn't merely shape Steven Spielberg's career, they shaped his soul. Not the obvious blockbusters, not the flashy picks, but the ones that linger in theme, in tone, in the emotions they left behind. For all his record-breaking box office hits, Spielberg never chased spectacle for its own sake. He chased feeling, wonder, dread, redemption. The subtle kind of power you only notice when the credits roll. Now that you've seen the films that inspired him, we want to hear from you. Which movie on this list moved you the most? Which story left its mark on your own imagination? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because sometimes the greatest journeys start by exploring what moves us most.